Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America Trading. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast, The Secret War on Cash, where we take a look at some of the changing, evolutionary things that are taking place in our financial markets, in our economy. These days, there's no shortage of good information, good material, and a lot of change that's taking place. I have Chris Agelastos, my co-host, with me here today. Chris, thanks for joining us. Hope all is well with you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, you're looking good, looking fantastic.
Aw,
So we're going to talk about some financial and economic things today.
fun.
Do something different, not so much. This has been this first topic has been a pretty consistent one, and unfortunately, not because we're trying to just focus on a single area. It just seems like this onion's got a ton of layers to it. And referring to our banking system.
hmm
And I mean, I'm telling you, for over a year now that where we've covered these articles, Chris, you see these headlines and you're just like, oh my gosh. I mean, to some extent, like I don't want to speak for you, but like just kind of your stomach drops
Yeah.
because first off, you're hearing about these banks, and when you first, like, if you look at this first one we'll look at here, I don't know if that's my institution or not. You don't know until you start reading it and find out what's going on.
hmm
But looking at this first one, 33,928 bank customers received data breach alerts as U.S. lenders warn personal information fumble. Now that's cute because we did just start football season.
Right.
So very good choice of words there by Mark Ammon, the writer or the author of this article. But tens of thousands of people receiving data breach information.
hmm
I mean, that's horrible. And
Yeah.
I can't even imagine getting a call like that. Like, or I would assume it's, I don't know. Well, no, they're clearly not going to be calling. I'm sure it's either an email, um, maybe a text of some kind. But, and that kind of speaks to another part of the problem too. Can you imagine, like, if you called me and said, hey, there's a problem with your bank account and we could have a little bit of discussion, you might be able to calm my nerves a little bit.
Right.
But like, if I get an email or a letter that's telling me this, that doesn't really leave much opportunity for maybe getting some of my questions answered and finding out what exactly is happening here.
Yeah.
The two banks, the two institutions here, let's see, we had USAA and the Bank of Clarke, major institutions.
hmm
And what kind of information was breached? um, they say it may have included name, address, email address, date of birth, social security number, driver's license number, passport number, I don't,
Yeah.
passport, vehicle identification number, loan numbers, health information,
hmm
and property and casualty insurance policy information.
Yep.
Now, I don't know what other type of things they could have possibly left out there other than like children's age and children's social security numbers, but this seems like a pretty major deal.
Yeah.
And as you read through the article here, here's the thing I don't understand is like, this is an electronic breach of sorts. I mean, I'm assuming somebody didn't walk into USAA and cart out, hundreds, if not thousands, of filing cabinets full of information.
Yeah.
How are they not able to like to my understanding, reading through this article, they haven't even identified who has done this. Like, I mean, so if they don't know who's done it, and they're saying it may have included, they don't really know what's been taken.
hmm
Like, what confidence or assurance do you have of feeling like anything you have in the banks or whatever is safe?
Well, the way I read it, I get the feeling that they actually served this information up and made a mistake. They said it was during a routine update. They accidentally delivered this information to the wrong account. So it sounds to me like they were doing something within their database, and a big chunk of this data was accidentally sent outside of the system. And again, like when you were reading that list, I was thinking, yeah, passport number, right? Health info. And then I realized, well, USAA, 20th,
They do everything.
yeah, that's the 20th largest bank. banking institution in the U.S., mostly for military members too. So these are like military members, our first responders, the people you want to protect, people that protect us, and their information isn't being protected. But yeah, because they work in property and casualty and life insurance and annuities and investments and banking. Again, maybe one of the problems with allowing these big financial institutions to just continue to grow and gobble up smaller companies, it's sort of like a one-stop shop for a hacker, right? If you were going to break into somebody's system, this is the type of company to go after because you can get just a plethora of information. And, what's also a little, unnerving about this is that it happened back in April and they didn't even realize it until July. So several months had gone by where, they didn't even realize that they had a hole that needed to be plugged. So it is scary how much of our info is out there. And I remember somebody, I can't remember who it was, but I was watching, I think it was a TED Talk on YouTube, and somebody was talking about how the most valuable thing that most of us own is our data. And this is a perfect example of that. All of our data, all of our actions, everything that we do as a consumer is very valuable to all these other companies, both legitimate and illegitimate. And this is just an example of how, I guess, unprotected that valuable data can be.
Well, you're right. As you were saying that, it is very valuable, and clearly it's very vulnerable as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I, or anybody tuning into this podcast, whomever, can take every precautionary measure known to man to make sure that our identity, our data is safe, is protected, or whatever else. But what we can't do is prevent this from happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're at the mercy of the system. And as we've talked about in other podcasts, to me is somewhat concerning about this is that all the talk about going into digital currencies and shifting the whole financial platform, not just in the United States but around the globe, there is less governance there than there is even in the confines of what we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is happening now, what in the world happens if we do make this change over to a more digital type platform? And these are just, I mean, these stories, these situations just keep coming and coming and coming. In fact, look at the next article here. $1 billion bank. Now this one accused of secretly $1 billion bank accused of secretly sending customers' personal and financial information to Facebook, Google, and Microsoft. All right.
Yeah.
So secretly sending customers. So, okay. So I'm assuming the secret, I mean, I read this. And so the secret part of it is like just not telling people that they did it. But it speaks to the fact that, this is, again, as you just mentioned a moment ago, how vulnerable we really are, because that was your word. It's a good one. Because you said valuable, and I said vulnerable, so that was a good word I used. But it does speak to the vulnerability.
Patting yourself on the back, unbelievable.
I don't know. It's sorry for you tuning in, but it is. I mean, again, you read these things, Chris, and like it's not a surprise. I mean, I don't think anybody's listening to this or anybody reads this article is like, oh, okay, I'm shocked that somebody. I mean, let's be clear. I'm sure there's some kind of financial gain or benefit to be had by secretly sending this stuff. But I mean, Chris, is there anything more we could do to be safe? Is there anything we could do to protect ourselves? And is this something that's going to get better, or is it going to get worse?
Yeah, well, I think at this point, if you want to protect your data, you're probably going to have to move to a cabin in the woods, one without internet access, and not use a smartphone, because at this point, this technology is so intertwined with our daily lives that I don't know that you can really function typically or like a typical person in our society today, and not have these sorts of data breaches. And it, at least in the first article with USAA, at least that was a mistake, which I mean isn't good, right? But Capital One here gathering this information about their customers, not telling their customers, and then giving it, which really means selling it, to companies like Facebook and Google and Microsoft, so that they can, market products to you. That's really the bad part of this article. Most companies tell you that they're going to be taking your information. Capital One just happened to be stealing it, and they're the eighth largest banking institution in the U.S. So they're definitely a big boy. I know most people probably know their name, and the particular instance that started all of this, at least with one of the people leading this class action lawsuit, they applied for a credit card on the Capital One website, and almost immediately started getting a ton of Facebook ads for credit card offers from multiple institutions, but all channeled through Facebook, and that's what kind of tipped them off. And it was account information, banking account information that was provided on the application to get a credit card. What sort of pages and links that this person clicked on, and all of that is just kind of served up to these technology companies so that they can figure out how to sell your data via marketing. Let other companies market products to you. So again, the big problem here, though, is that they didn't disclose it. And I know a lot of people probably don't read their the whole info pamphlets when you sign up for a credit card and everything, where it tells you what they do with your info, your privacy info, those pamphlets. But these days we just like scroll to the bottom real quick, check a box and hit submit, and move on, because we're so used to people kind of stealing our data. But I remember, I mean, this was years ago, probably 5-6 years ago. I think it was pre-COVID, or right around there. I was here in the office talking with a coworker, and we were talking about a very specific style of shoe, I think it was, and just having this conversation over lunch. And within like 20 or 30 minutes, hopped on the phone. I don't remember what website it was, but we were being served offers for like those specific shoes. So it's not a coincidence. And this was right after too. I forget, Edward Snowden, I think it was the initial whistleblower that leaked out that our phones were listening to us. And so this stuff has been going on. It isn't really anything new, but shame on Capital One for at least not telling us that they were going to steal our data first.
Well, especially you look at Facebook in particular. I know a lot of people, as I'm sure you do as well, who, due to privacy concerns going back a few years ago, remember when they were before Congress testifying and whatnot, like a lot of people dumped Facebook. They were worried about their privacy, worried about all of the filtering Facebook did, just the various things associated with it. And so you think about how many, there are a lot of people who did that, but yet they're not even safe, because their bank, their financial institution, ended up sending this stuff off to them. So it just is, again, it's one of the things I love about the title, The Secret War on Cash, is that I don't think there is a better term for what is going on right now, because you look at all these problems, you look at these situations, and it is, our money is constantly under attack. And our money, kind of to your point earlier, our data is money. I mean, that's why this is happening. People are taking our data and they're monetizing it through these various other venues or avenues, if you will. So that's where, learn more about the Secret War on Cash by contacting our office, 1-800-289-2646, or visit us online at www.swissamerica.com. Please subscribe to this podcast, as we're going to be looking at banks, governments, some of the things that are taking place going into this election and political season that are really reshaping the very world that we live in, which has been happening for a while now. So, Chris, thank you for the information. And for those of you
Yep.
tuning in, thank you for doing so. And we look forward to seeing you again here real soon.